Hello. Good afternoon. Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen here with you on a Friday afternoon. We've made it to the weekend, and a very exciting weekend around here because it's the official start to high school football. We've got a very busy night. We'll run through who's playing where, what's on the line for these games, how you can follow along. We'll give you updates on where these teams are playing, how you can listen on various radio stations across our family of stations that are following what's going on here for our high school teams. So a lot of exciting stuff on the way. And, because of these games that are taking place, we don't have Jason Walker in studio because he is on the road getting ready to call. He's not taking on anybody, but he's taking on traffic. No, he's going to be calling the game for the Logan Grizzlies, and we'll let you know where they're at, who they're playing, in a unique venue for them. And so that's all coming up a little bit later on here on the program. And of course, if you want to chime in, always love to hear from you. And there are multiple ways to do that. You can chime in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. That's the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. And you can also drop in a chat on our YouTube channel where we're streaming it live at the Fan KLGN on YouTube. And you can leave a comment in there, ask a question, or disagree entirely with what I'm trying to talk about. So feel free to chime in and be a part of the program, whichever way is most convenient for you, whether you're listening over the air on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, if you're streaming on 1069thefan.com, or on the 1069 The Fan mobile app, or if you're watching us on YouTube. Lots of different ways to participate and be a part of the program and let us know what's on your mind as we go through a variety of different topics today. And we will get into the high school football schedule here in a little bit, but wanted to talk first a little bit about another interesting poll that, or I don't know if I call it a poll, but a ranking that has recently been released, this time by ESPN. They'll occasionally do this, and we've seen some of this before. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the year, but David Hale has put together a ranking of all 138 football teams for this upcoming season, but it's not 1 through 138 per se, but they are ranked and sometimes grouped together in different tiers. Like the top tier, it's got just a few teams in it. It's called Tier 1, the safest bets, teams that basically are the best chance of going to the college football playoff title game. That's Indiana Hoosiers, Miami Hurricanes, Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Ohio State Buckeyes. So those are your top tier teams. But he's got like 19 different tiers that he's put together, grouping teams into these different groups. And so looking through this, I was looking for a few things specifically. Certainly, where are the Aggies? Where do they rank on this list? But also, what about their Pac-12 peers? What about teams that they're going to face in the regular season, their non-conference schedule? Are they facing teams that are in pretty high tiers or tiers closer to where they are also located? And then also, what about some of the other teams in our area? I did not go through and specifically note Pac-12 versus Mountain West, though there are a good number of teams in the Mountain West who are below any teams in the Pac-12. There's like 4 or 5 schools in the Mountain West below the lowest schools in the Pac-12. There aren't any schools in the Mountain West that are above the Pac-12. So there's a few here and there in the midst of where these Pac-12 schools exist. And there were a few schools that I did note, but not all of them. But some of the interesting things with this list. So who's the closest team around here, either in the Pac-12 or Utah, BYU, non-conference opponents for Utah State? And the highest ranked team in this area is BYU, coming in at tier number 3. And that tier is labeled, maybe this is their year. Now, this is, occasionally that he'll throw out some interesting information about some of these specific schools. But some, they just kind of gloss over the fact. But BYU is a team that one of only 11 who have won at least 70% of their games since 2020, but only one of those has actually made the playoff, and that was BYU last year. So poised to be another solid season for the Cougars. But what about the Utes? Utah also looks like a pretty interesting team. Of course, they do have a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, but they have a lot of talented players coming back. And that's where we find the Utes, is in tier number 4, that next tier down. So the first non-conference opponent for the Aggies, the highest ranked of the non-conference or conference opponents for Utah State. Utah coming in at tier number 4, called We're Still Here, joined by Alabama, Michigan, and Ole Miss. And certainly for the Utes, some concern a little bit about new head coaches, a new head coach there, and what will happen. Michigan obviously has their new head coach with his former Utah coach, but this is a Utah team that's still very good. Led the Big 12, 5th in the Power 4 overall, with a 50.8% offensive success rate, and they've got a new offensive coordinator. We know him very well, Coach McGivern, and seems from the reports that I've seen, seems to be connecting well with the offensive talent there at Utah, as they do try to be more aggressive on offense and utilize the skills of the talent that they have on their roster. So Utah is definitely a team improving on offense and still very solid on defense, but as noted, there are some changes there, but still considered to be a very solid team in the Big 12 and nationally as well. So the next tier that we find an opponent is the next one down, and that's tier number 5. Always so close, but no cigar. This is where we find the Washington Huskies. That is another non-conference opponent for the Aggies. It's their first FBS non-conference opponent that they will face. And for the Huskies, this is a team that averaged 45 points a game in their 9 wins last year, but only averaged 9.3 in their 4 losses. So this is a team that when they were playing well, they really played well. But when they didn't, they stunk. And so which team will we see this year? And certainly Utah State is hoping for the latter, the team that only averaged 9.3 points in their 4 losses. So that Utah State defense could play very well, could be poised to restrict what Washington wants to do on an explosive offense and give themselves a chance to be in that game when they play in Seattle early in September. We haven't seen any conference opponents for Utah State yet. We haven't seen any Mountain West or Pac-12 schools just yet. So we have to keep sliding down these tiers to finally find somebody out of the Mountain West or out of the Pac-12, and we find them both in tier number 9. So you're saying there's a chance. And there are a number of teams in here. These are all group of 6 teams. This is really kind of a conglomeration of schools that that David Hale is trying to predict that these are teams that could be the representative from the group of 6 that makes the college football playoff. So it includes a number of non-power schools like Boise State. San Diego State is on this list. UNLV is on this list. But there are other schools that are scattered throughout G6 programs and conferences like James Madison, Navy, Toledo, South Florida, UTSA, and this was an interesting one, the North Dakota State Bison. So going from the FCS to FBS and maybe even to the college football playoff in their inaugural year, I mean, that's a program that knows how to succeed. They're very used to it. We've seen other schools that have success behind them. They know how to build upon that and do fairly well. Others act like they know how to do that, but once they get to this level, it's a big learning curve, and they struggle with that change. But could North Dakota State be that team that breaks through and comes right out of the gate playing well? Interesting note on the Bison: the past 6 teams to make the leap from FCS to FBS since 2021, they're combined 108-73, including a 6.46 winning percentage against fellow G6 opponents. all have made a bowl within their first 2 years. So the trends lately are that these programs have momentum on their side and they make the adjustments okay, and they turn out to be solid programs. So keep an eye on what happens with the Bison. But the notes about Boise State are interesting. Boise State had a missed or broken tackle on 76.5% of their tackle attempts last year, the second worst in the country. So that was a team that really struggled to stop opponents. If they had a hand on them, they had a hard time bringing them down. Will that be a trend that continues next year? If so, that's always going to be a limiting factor for how high the Broncos can go. Now, for San Diego State, instead of throwing a stat out there that maybe throws some shade on the team, it's different for the Aztecs because it notes that opposing quarterbacks threw 52 passes at least 20 yards downfield against San Diego State last year, but they completed just 8 of those passes. And so the Aztecs gave up only an average of 4.96 yards on those 52 attempts, by far the best in the country. Now, they did lose some dudes in their secondary. We'll see just how solid they are this year. They've had some transfers. They had certainly had some underclassmen that were part of that solid defense, but they did lose a lot from that outstanding defense last year. Again, a lot of these numbers in these rankings and these tiers are mostly based on what teams did last year, and that's really hard to do these rankings now because rosters are so different now than they used to be. But in Tier 9, besides San Diego State and Boise State, so you're saying there's a chance, is also UNLV and North Dakota State, as we mentioned. No real detail about UNLV and what their team could look like this upcoming season and why they're in this group. So then we have to go down a little bit further to find any other schools out of the Mountain West or the Pac-12. And mind you, I was most specifically looking for Pac-12 schools, but these other tiers are mostly filled with other P4 programs, those that are struggling or those that are underperforming. And finally, we get down to Tier 14. And this is kind of like the Tier 9, so you're saying there's a chance, where it highlights some of the better group of 6 programs. Tier 14 is another group of kind of similar situation. It's titled Group of 6 Contenders. And these are programs that could contend to win their conference. Maybe a bit of a stretch for them to get to the college football playoff, but teams that could be pretty solid. And teams that could find themselves ranked in the final top 25 poll. So this is a pretty good size list of teams out of the group of 6, but we do find a number of Pac-12 schools on this list and a few Mountain West as well. But we're still waiting to find that other non-conference opponent for Utah State. Are they on this list? Do we finally find them in one of these tiers? So in the Pac-12, Fresno State is listed in this tier. Texas State is listed here, and so is Washington State. Out of the Mountain West is New Mexico. And finally, we see the other non-conference opponent for the Utah State Aggies. The Troy Trojans are on this list in Tier 14. Now, we haven't heard the Aggies just yet. We don't have to see where Utah State is ranked on this list so far. We're already down to Tier 14. I haven't seen Utah State. But here's some of the information that they put together about Texas State. This is certainly one of those that are really interesting to note. Great offensive firepower. Not very good defense, allowed opponents to move up and down the field on them. How will they do in this transition to the Pac-12? But this was a team last year that had 19 plays of 50 yards or more from scrimmage. That's 4 more than anyone else in FBS. Not just among group of 6. This is among everybody in FBS, among all 138. Well, 137 last year. Sacramento State's a new one this year. So Texas State, very explosive offense last year, and let's be honest, it doesn't look like much is going to be that much different this year. They still expect them to be a very explosive team on offense. Washington State, meanwhile, also on this list. They were plus 44 points off of turnovers in 2024. but that flipped to minus 52 in 2025. That was the largest year-over-year swing in all of college football. That was a team that was healthy and competitive in 2024, struggled in 2025, particularly with turnovers and being able to capitalize on them. Different coach now this year, but again, trends of how some of these programs have been established. Troy, by the way, no real detail on New Mexico. They just kind of gloss over and don't really mention the Lobos. But they do have an interesting note about Troy. They finished 2025 with a minus 921 yard differential. That's not good. I don't know why they got put into the contenders because they gave up way more yards than their opponents and came up on the wrong side, and nearly 1,000 yards of difference, not in the right way for Troy. But that's Utah State's last non-conference game before they get into the conference play this year. So we have to keep going down the list. We still haven't noticed Utah State appear on any of these. Tier 15 is another list of power conference schools. If Indiana can do it, basically, it's a team that came from really bad to all of a sudden really good with the right level of investment and changes in roster. So those are all P4 programs kind of lumped into that category. And then we come down into tier 16. And that is, you could make a case. And we find a few former Mountain West or current Mountain West teams on this list. Air Force, Hawaii is on this list. But we see Pac-12 opponent Oregon State finally on this list. And the note on Oregon State, opponents averaged 8 yards to go on third downs against the Beavers. That was second best rate among the group of 6. And we often look down on the Beavers for a really struggling season last year. Only 2 wins. One of those was getting one over Washington State after playing them the second time. So the Beavers really struggled to find victories. But it wasn't for a lack of a pretty stout defense. A defense that averaged 8 yards to go on third down? That's really solid. Second best rate among a group of 6 schools. And we'll see if that continues. I know they got a new coaching staff there as well, but see if that defensive mentality carries over for Oregon State. So now we're finally coming down into tier 17 of 19 different tiers, and we haven't seen Utah State yet. But in tier 17, we finally find the Aggies. And this is titled Works in Progress. Utah State is there, along with Colorado State, the last schools out of the Mountain West to be listed. The note on Colorado State, they blitzed on nearly 60% of defensive snaps versus dropbacks last year. Again, new coaching staff. We'll see if that really continues next year. But that was a team that loved to try to get after opponents. That was more than double the FBS average and 10 percentage points more than the number 2 most frequent blitzer. We'll see if that defensive mentality continues with Colorado State. But if it does, with some maybe retooled offense, Colorado State Rams could be a team that's got some work to do and a work that's currently in progress. Unfortunately, no note about the Utah State Aggies and nothing to really share. Kind of like a few other schools got glossed over. Fresno State got glossed over, New Mexico, new UNLV, but Utah State kind of skimming past the Aggies. But then there's like 2 more tiers below that. That's tier 18. Are we having fun yet? That's where we find Nevada and San Jose and Wyoming. And then the very bottom tier, that's not the worst. I guess there's one more tier below that. Sorry, there's a few more. Not the worst is tier 19. And no Mountain West or certainly no Pac-12 schools. New Mexico State is in that list. Southern Miss is on that list, in that tier. Blake Anderson is the head coach there. And then finally, the very bottom category, very bottom list, very bottom tier on this list, tier 20, technically still FBS programs. And that's where we find Northern Illinois and UTEP. So not great for some of these Mountain West schools. got 2 in the very bottom tier. You've got 3 in the third from last tier. But Utah State coming in at number 17 in tier 17, works in progress. And, I have a hard time really disagreeing with that because you hear us talk about that all the time. This Aggie team does have work to do. This is a team that defensively looks like they made improvements, but we have questions about the offense. This is a team that still got to a bowl game last year. They definitely improved their season as the back half of the schedule against the teams we thought they wouldn't play very well against. They played their best against. So it's still a little bit hard to figure out this team under Bronco Mendenhall and what they could look like this season. So again, if this is based on what happened last year, then it kind of stands to reason why you put Utah State where you put them. But still, you'd think that with Bronco Mendenhall as the head coach, you might give them a little bit more credit and a little bit more credence as to who he is and what he does to programs, and see how Utah State is trying to improve on defense. But currently, according to this list, Boise State and San Diego State are the top highest ranked teams out of the Pac-12, coming in at tier 9. And you've got a number of other schools in tier 14, Fresno State, Texas State, Washington State, Oregon State in tier 16, and in tier 17, Colorado State and Utah State to finish out the Pac-12. And in the non-conference, Utah coming as the highest among these tiers at tier number 4, Washington State right behind them in tier 5, and then Troy coming in tier 14. But a team that was a negative 921 in yard differential. So what do you think? Are those tiers pretty fair for Pac-12 schools, and how you think the Aggies probably would be perceived, at least on the outside, and where they were placed? Or should they be a little bit higher? Maybe you think they should be a little bit lower. 435-339-0321 if you want to weigh in. Coming up next here on the Full Court Press, we'll reveal our next player in our top 25 Aggies for 2026, and introduce who this it's another standout player, great character guy as well, who's the latest on our list of our top 25 Aggies for 2026. That's coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Do you want the adventure without the payment? Live Young Rentals at Young Power Sports lets you rent the newest machines by the day or the weekend so you can hit the road, the trails, or the water this weekend with Live Young Rentals. Just call 435-755-7111, 435-755-7111. Young Power Sports, they sponsor our text line, 435-339-0321, for those who want to chime in. Do you agree with Utah State's placement in this ESPN ranking of all college football teams, putting them down in Tier 17, pretty low on the list, and the group together with those in works in progress with other schools kind of in that territory? But one player who was trying to help out with that work in progress and try to elevate the Utah State football program is the next on our list of top 25 Aggies for 2026. Let's introduce number 11 on our list today.
The Top 25 Aggies of 2026 presented by Cache Valley Media Group continues with the next player to be revealed on the countdown of the best athletes for Utah State football for the upcoming season. Coming in at number 11 is linebacker Harrison Taggart. Taggart comes to Utah State after stops at BYU, Oregon, and most recently, California. The 6'1" linebacker has appeared in 40 games across his 4 seasons in college football. This past season, Taggart played 13 games for Cal, recording 38 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. Preseason hype for Taggart is high, as the linebacker has been named second-team preseason All-Pac-12 by Athlon and first-team preseason All-Pac-12 by Phil Steele.
Last year, John Miller was an animal. He was a machine for Utah State in the linebacker core. And so the questions were, like, who's going to replace this guy? How can Utah State maintain a level of success at that position? Harrison Taggart helps Utah State in a big way to achieve that. This is a guy who has legitimate experience at Cal, at BYU, spent a little bit of time at Oregon as well. So this is a guy who's well-traveled, but he's had the benefit of training among some very good football programs. Now, Cal historically, maybe not that great, but they have been on an upswing here recently. So this is a guy who's had some opportunities, had some significant training, but he has some background behind him, and he also a very high character guy. Jason had a chance to visit with him last week at the Utah State football media opportunities as they opened fall camp. But this is a player that's going to really help anchor this Utah State defense. Already in the middle of a solid linebacker core with Bronson Olivau and a few others that are coming back and some new additions. But Harrison Taggart certainly going to be a key player in that position to help solidify the linebacker core and that front seven generally for Utah State. The mob, as they're calling themselves. But interesting note on our ballots as they were put together, Harrison Taggart only appeared on 3 ballots. But of the 3 ballots, those who had him on the ballots, they thought very highly of him. In fact, one ballot had him as high as 3. Another one had him, all in the top 10. One had him as high as 3, another 7, and another 10. But Harrison Taggart, I believe he was on my list, and I really feel like this is a guy who is going to be a significant playmaker for Utah State on defense. He looked good in the spring, and again, someone with that experience, opportunity for a larger, expanded role in a place like Utah State. It just really lines up to have for him to have a special season at that linebacker core and help out with some other key veteran guys already in the mix there. So I think we're going to hear Harrison Taggart's name called a lot. I'd say we'd see his number a lot, but we don't know his number just yet. But this is that's Bronco Mendenhall's way. But this is a guy I think will make a big impact for Utah State and can be a really significant playmaker for Utah State on the defense, as bringing in that experience with him from all those different stops along the way. 435-339-0321 in our Young Power Sports of Logan text line. Getting a text in from 8968 talking about the rankings and the tiers that we were talking about from ESPN. 8968 saying, I never put too much stock in rankings. As Matt put it, tell me where we are at the end of the season. That's true. And Bronco Mendenhall is always quick to downgrade anything regarding a preseason poll or preseason rankings that come out. He thinks they're not worth anything. And so it's hard to get him to comment on them because he doesn't respect them or really want to recognize them. But it is some degree of discussion to help people talk about and try to at least figure out what could happen for the upcoming season. And I think there is a place for some preseason polls. I know there's some argument out there that top 25 rankings and things like that, those should probably wait maybe a week or two after the season begins before those rankings really come out. And I can see that because, again, the preseason polls are based largely on what you did last year and who they think is coming back. But so much roster turnover, coaches turnover, the preseason polls they really aren't really worth much. But nonetheless, these are a little bit different rankings as they're putting those together. 5338 texting in, who didn't have Taggart on their ballot? The campus student center is named after him, for heaven's sake. Yeah, I mean, come on. There's a great big building that has his name on it. This Taggart Student Center. So he should be on everybody's ballot. And I get it. It is kind of hard for some of these newcomers to understand, where they should land and on our ballots and preseason rankings as we talk about them. But where do these players, are they really going to make an impact? Just because you came from a Power 4 program doesn't mean that's going to translate to success. We've unfortunately seen that as well. There's been a lot of success stories, but there's also been some real duds too. So it can be a little bit tricky in trying to figure that out. 8968 following up. Preseason rankings gives you guys something to talk about. Yes, it does. We are thankful for some preseason rankings. It provides talking points, and it's for the fans, really. The preseason rankings are opportunities for the fans to agree or disagree or argue with each other, barbershop talk, stuff like that, and compare and contrast. Have an opinion, defend your opinion. Is there data that helps support your belief? Things like that. So there can be reasons for it. I think preseason polls, the top 25 and AP and coaches polls, I think those are premature to send those out this time of year. But some of these others that are coming out, like this one where the ESPN puts together, where it groups teams together and different tiers, if you will. I actually like that better than just 1 through 138, because after you get past the top 25, even at the top 30, it can be really subjective. And it's easy to rank the top. It's easy to rank the bottom. The stuff in the middle it's a big whatever, So that's why I kind of like this tier ranking, because then you can group teams together based on kind of where they're at. New coach is an exciting thing. Do they make some good additions in the transfer portal? Are they headed in the right direction? Do they have momentum on their side, or still too many questions? So I actually prefer this ranking of 138 over just one all the way through, and then you debate their ranking and this team 2 spots over that team or whatever. So I'm okay with it. And certainly when we do our rankings, the top 25 players for Utah State, it's subjective, it's opinion. But as we can see today, 3 people thought highly of Harrison Taggart. 2 people didn't even have him on their ballots. So there's still some subjectivity there. And what's hard too is that we just don't see enough in the spring. We just don't have a lot of evidence to tell us, is this newcomer going to be an impact player? Is this returning player? Is he making the leap? Is he making improvements? Or is he regressing? Will he be surpassed by a newcomer or even a freshman? So we don't really have nearly as much information as we used to. So we kind of have to do our best at giving a shot at this. But that's why I like that there are multiple people who are participating in this. This isn't just according to Eric, the top 25 list, or it's not just according to Jason. And you have multiple people weighing in. I believe it gives a little bit more credence to what we all kind of think could happen for the Utah State football program for this upcoming season. So I know they've had about a week and a half of practices in the books. It's been a bit of a challenge for me this week to get up to practices and talk to players and coaches. I am hopeful. I've been signaling plans to get up there tomorrow. I'm going to have a practice tomorrow. I'm going to try to get there to do that. Because it just feels weird for me that I haven't been up there yet. The practices have been going. Fall camp has been going for a week and a half, and I haven't been up there on the field with a microphone in hand yet. So it really feels weird for me that hasn't happened, but I'm going to try to get up there on Saturday. It's just been a really weird week with other scheduling things going on here in the building with people gone and covering multiple bases. But anyway, Harrison Taggart, number 11 on our list. So that means next week we're into the top 10 for the Utah State football players that we believe will have the biggest impact for the Aggies. And Jason Walker has been putting together these grouping in 5 that we're publishing on Cache Valley Daily. So you can go back and see who got ranked and ranked where, and a little bit of information about each player. So if you go to cachevalleydaily.com today, you can go back through. If you go to the Utah State section, you can see some of our rankings, and including in the next hour or so, we'll include the next 5 after we have now revealed number 11. As if you want to go back and see who was ranked where in our top 25 Aggies for 2026. All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick timeout here on the Full Court Press. I want to shift gears a little bit. Let's go to talk some baseball for a minute. Last night, magical night in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa, the Field of Dreams game. Is it getting old? Should we keep doing it like it's been doing? Are there any changes that should happen? Or how can other sports follow the example of Major League Baseball? Or is that even possible? 435-339-0321. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Did you find it fascinating? Do you find it interesting to watch the Field of Dreams game? Is it overdone? Is it time to put it to pasture? Or do we need more of that? 435-339-0321 here on the Full Court Press. All of us here at The Fan congratulate this year's Best of Northern Utah winners, presented by Alpine Cleaning and Restoration. See all the winners in our free copy of the Best of Northern Utah magazine, available in great businesses all over town. Celebrating businesses like Country Village Antique Mall, Advanced Surgery Center of Northern Utah, Logan River Golf Course, and Beezer Lock and Key, among many, many others. Just go to bestofnorthernutah.com to see the winners or to find out where you can pick up your own free magazine. So last night, it was the Field of Dreams game for Major League Baseball. Fun game. Beautiful setting. Always have fun, the way that the nostalgia that they work in there, bringing former players out onto the field, out of the cornfield itself. And you have people dressed up in old-timey uniforms out there on the scoreboard. Now, they didn't have some technology there in the game, not your normal game, and there's an attempt to challenge a ball and a strike that didn't go very well because the technology just wasn't there. But, I mean, Carlos Schwarber had himself a day to get things started, a guy from the Midwest, and certainly a significant event for him getting that kind of a home run to get things started. But is it getting overdone? Have we done too many of these games? Is it watering down the nostalgia? Or do we need to lean in on it? Do we need more of this? And because it's, logistically, it's a bit of a challenge putting it there and pulling off a Major League Baseball game. They don't always have the same facilities that most places have. And there's travel concerns for just one game. You don't have a series that you normally have when in your schedule, you face a team 3 times. But for me, I think the benefits outweigh some of the challenges. I love seeing it. I do worry about having it watered down. I don't think this should be an every year thing. And I know it's been a minute since they've had it. They didn't do it last year. I think that you do it once every, I don't know if it's once every other year or even extend it a little bit further, once every 3 years, once every 4, just to make it special when it does happen. Because if you do it every year, then it starts to lose some of its mystique. It just becomes routine. All right, we're going to do another game in the cornfield. It just becomes too rote. But if you spread it out a bit and you make it special, make it a special event, it will feel very special. Now, I don't know if there are other games that they could do to have the same feeling. Maybe they have a game in a rundown field to make it seem like it's in the sand lot. You launch a bunch of fireworks over the top to light up the arena like they do on the 4th of July. But you put a great big dog in the outfield and some James Earl Jones lookalike person out there. But I think that it would be interesting to do other types of games that lean in on the nostalgia. That's really what baseball does very, very well. Basketball always tries to be hip and new and what's the latest thing. We're going to do crazy courts and we're going to do a play-in tournament, and then we're going to do an in-season cup thing. And baseball doesn't really do that. They're leaning in on the nostalgia. Like, remember how great this sport is and its history. Let's embrace its history and let's not run from it. So I love that about baseball. And I'd love to get your thoughts and recommendations about other ways that baseball could do that, or if there are other ways that other sports can do that. I know, like, once the NBA thought they would lean into that and go to the Hinkle Fieldhouse and try to recreate some of the magic and nostalgia of Hoosiers. And I think that the NBA Cup is actually going to do a little bit of that again. But it seems a little bit forced how the NBA does it compared to how Major League Baseball does it. 9310 on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line saying, play the game in corn once a year. Baseball has 160 times 15 games a year. There are a lot of games that are played in Major League Baseball. They have a lot of opportunities to do things, but I don't know. I feel like if it becomes too regular, it just kind of loses some of the mystique about it. I don't know, maybe it's just that one time and there's a little bit more build up and you spread it around and it's a different team each time that gets that opportunity. It was kind of ironic, and I know a lot of people have been pointing this out on social media, that Field of Dreams is based on these past players who come out of the corn, and particularly one shoeless Joe Jackson, who was banned from baseball over cheating and gambling scandals. And in the Field of Dreams game, out there in the outfield, in great big bold letters, are 2 gambling sites that are promoting gambling. And you had BetMGM and FanDuel that were out there. It's a little bit ironic, but I don't know. I love the feeling of it, but I worry about if you do it too often, make it an every year thing, it would start to lose its luster a little bit. So I don't know if it's like with the what the NHL does, their Frozen Four, doing things that are a little bit different and to help it kind of stand out, capture people's attention because it's so unique and different. And the NHL does a really nice job, actually, in a lot of different ways with the Winter Classic and things like that. So I guess the biggest thing is, so the NHL does something, the NBA does the in-season tournament, the NBA Cup, but I don't think that really achieves its intended goal. It doesn't lean into nostalgia, certainly. The Winter Classic kind of leans in on, this is how a lot of kids played. This is how they grew up playing, was out on the ice, out on the pond or on a lake, especially in if you're up in Canada. But I don't know if the NFL has anything quite like that. Well, there's an NFL movie that really captures the nostalgia of the game. NBA has Hoosiers, but I don't know if it's at the same level. So I think that is something that baseball is kind of unique at. I don't know that others can really replicate what they've done. I don't know if you have an NBA game where they're out there in sneakers that look like Chuck Taylors and see what they can do, or at least replicas of Chuck Taylors, and lean in with the short shorts, maybe a little bit different uniforms. It could be entertaining to watch. I don't know if it would necessarily capture the same level of nostalgia, but love to continue to get your thoughts and recommendations on that. 435-339-0321 here on the Full Court Press. Another quick timeout, and we'll be right back here on the Full Court Press. Napa Auto Parts is the place to go if you want an OE filter for your diesel. They have Mopar and AC Delco filters in stock now. They also have NGK, Schaefer's, Amsoil, Rotella, Dello, Valvoline, all in stock at your local Napa Auto Parts stores. So talking about baseball, certainly if you want to weigh in on nostalgia games that other major leagues or major professional programs can do, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what they could do to replicate the magic of the Field of Dreams game for Major League Baseball. But there's still kind of this threat looming of a Major League Baseball lockout. We hear it talked about. Certainly, it was discussed quite a bit in the on the off season as the Dodgers kept spending money like it was going out of style, buying every great player from all these different rosters, and it got picked up again in the trade deadline when they acquired Tarek Skubal. Though I think that's a bunch of hooey. It was a trade, it wasn't a free agent signing. So if you really wanted him, you could have given the Tigers a little better offer, but whatever. But there's still talk about that Major League Baseball needs to create a cap or at least a floor, and that there needs to be some better structure with what's going on in Major League Baseball, because there is no salary cap. You've got teams like the Dodgers who can keep doling out money to players, and one player can have a salary almost equal to an entire team payroll somewhere else, like Tampa, for example. But you have some franchise owners that are like, we couldn't afford to keep a team together if you institute this floor that's being talked about. So I think there's some serious and significant risks facing baseball if a lockout does happen. And I think that, there's a chance that some teams, some franchises could really struggle to get fans back. The last time this happened was in 1994. The Expos up in Montreal, they were a good baseball team, but they struggled with their fan base. And after the lockout, they struggled to get them back. And eventually the team left, collapsed. Could that happen to another team? It could happen with Tampa. This is a team they're trying to get a new arena put together, but it's not put together yet. And so there's tenuous situations there. What if they're just like, you know what, we just can't do it anymore? And then the fans are going to struggle to come back, and then a team just disappears. It's possible. You could have some of these fringe players who are struggling to make rosters, who struggle to find their way back to baseball. You could have some lost seasons for players that are could be approaching significant personal milestones, that a lost season prevents them from being in some pretty significant clubs for home runs or runs total or hits, pitchers in that same discussion. But you could also have this has happened before, where they've tried to have replacement players come in, and that's a disaster from just trying to fill things up. This hasn't worked well in the NFL. It didn't work before in Major League Baseball. So there's a lot of risks at play. Plus, the guy who owns the Dodgers, he's under federal investigation. So I don't know that there's going to be much continuing about how much the Dodgers are doling out for high-priced players. There could be some significant changes facing their club external to any discussion about salary caps or salary floors in Major League Baseball. So I don't know, something to continue to watch and keep an eye on, but there could be some real significant risks facing baseball if they do it. Quick timeout with Dan Patrick, and then when we come back on the other side, high school football kicking off tonight. We'll give you the full schedule. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in. It's hour number 2 here on the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen with you. Flying solo today. Jason Walker on his way south to help call the football game for the Logan High Grizzlies. High school football kicking off tonight. An exciting time of the year. And we'll let you know this hour who's playing where and how you can follow along. And kind of what's early on the line for these teams as they just get started for their the 2026 campaigns. Of course, a lot of different ways to follow along today here on the Full Court Press. We're on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, streaming on 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. And you can also follow us on YouTube, where we're live streaming the show on The Fan KLGN. That's the name of our YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe to our page, and so you get notified whenever we go live on our show and be a part of the program. You can drop in a comment there on YouTube in the chat, or you can text into the show at on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321 if you want to weigh in. Last hour, asked what other professional sports leagues can do to replicate the nostalgia of the Field of Dreams game that Major League Baseball pulled off so successfully last year. And there's been some years that have been a little bit better than others. I know a few years back, they had Kevin Costner walk out onto the field and he narrated a whole thing, and that was actually really cool. I liked how this year they brought in older players that kind of walked out of the corn onto the field, and that was a neat effect. And so maybe that's a really neat way to pay homage to former players who maybe we don't get discussed as much and have them show up at that kind of a game. But I feel like I'm nervous about making that an every year event, just because it would start to lose some of its luster. And so do it every other year, maybe every 3 years. But so that when it does happen, it's an event that we look forward to and keep talking about afterwards. But are there other events that other professional sports could do? And I was thinking about golf during the break. I don't know if this is particularly a course that has a lot of nostalgia. I know there's been different movies about former golfers, and there's a lot of them in TV series as well. But I don't do like a Bagger Vance type of situation, but could be interesting to have golfers, like modern golfers, dress up like the old golfers did with the knickerbockers, like the puffy pants and the fancy old caps, and see what they could do on a course. Maybe not the pants to the same degree as they used to, but have them dress up as old-timey golfers. I don't know that they necessarily need to play with the old-timey clubs, because that would be pretty interesting. It might be fun to have them give it a try and see how well they can still play. But I think that there are some things that golf could do that could make it interesting. But at the NFL, the NBA, I seem to be struggling to find a venue or an era or a movie that really connects it, unless the NFL goes to and plays a game in some prison yard and does that in retrospect to the Longest Yard. But I don't know. Love to get your thoughts. If you've got any recommendations on that, still send them in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. But moving on to the next topic, and something super exciting. It always seems to creep up on me, and it seems to be getting earlier and earlier every year. This year's no different. It's August 14th. We're not even technically halfway through the month of August yet. I still feel like we're in summer, but we've got the boys of fall starting right now. We got high school football starting tonight. Now, technically, there were games that happened last night, a few games that happened on Thursday nights, but all intents and purposes for all the schools that we follow around here, it's the start of high school football tonight. And we've got a full schedule of games that we want to talk about and remind you about how these games can be followed, how they can be watched, how you can listen to them, and the different people we have involved calling these games, because there's going to be some tweaks this year, and definitely some tweaks tonight to some of these broadcasts. So let's start off with what will be heard here on The Fan. long-time partnership with Skyview High School. It's not necessarily because they're favorites. It's just back in the day, there weren't very many high schools that existed, and Logan already had a long-established connection with KVNU. So when Skyview started off and started playing games, well, KLGN was really the only other channel that was going that could do a partnership with Skyview. So there's just a long heritage with the Bobcats here on The Fan. And they're really excited for the broadcast coverage this season because one of our longest tenured guys in our group is back for another year, and that's Hurricane John Newbold. John Newbold was an analyst for Logan for a while. He's been the play-by-play voice for Skyview. He was an analyst for Skyview before it became able to move into the main chair, the main position. But Newbold is deeply connected to the Skyview Bobcats, and we're excited for another season with him behind the microphone calling the Skyview Bobcats. And he'll be joined again this season with Kason Carlson, former quarterback for the Bobcats. We'll be joining him on his broadcast. It was fun to hear him give his personal experiences as a very successful player and athlete for Skyview. So tonight, it's Skyview versus Park City. Park City's a football team that's usually plays pretty tough and can usually have a pretty aggressive and physical style of football when they play them. So this could be one of the most interesting games on the schedule tonight in the opening night of high school football for us. So Park City Miners against the Skyview Bobcats. We'll have full play-by-play starting at about 6:45 for the pregame, and then the kickoff just after 7. And here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, it'll be streaming. You can listen to it on our website, 1069thefan.com. You can also pull up the 1069 The Fan mobile app, or you can watch the game. And we've got the video streaming on cashvalleydaily.com. So you'll be able to watch what happens if you're not able to be there in person. We always try to encourage you to be there in person when you can. But if you can't, then there's a great way to watch and still follow along with full play-by-play, full video on cashvalleydaily.com. One of the other interesting games that's on the schedule is another game that's there's two games that are happening in unique venues tonight, and the first one is the Logan High Grizzlies. We mentioned Logan and their relationship with KVNU, and that continues. That started in the late 1930s or the early 1940s. It's been a long time that the KVNU has had that relationship with Logan High School, and it continues. Great historic tradition continues this season, and our good friend Jason Walker will be doing that once again. He's had several seasons now calling games for the Logan High Grizzlies. And for football, he'll be joined by Josh Anderson, a former Utah State football player. He has spent time playing his high school football in the area with these region teams, and has been a part of our broadcast crew for several years. And so he's joining Jason Walker once again with the Logan High Grizzlies. And Logan is taking on Summit Academy for their opener, but it's not at Summit Academy. There was some uncertainty earlier in this offseason about where exactly this game would be played, but we learned last week that it would actually be played at Juan Diego High School. So Jason is on his way to Juan Diego to call that game for the Grizzlies, as Logan has a new head coach. Exciting. They started to build on some things last year. Excited to see a lot of underclassmen got significant playing time last year, and curious to see how well that translates this year into hopefully a even more successful campaign for the Logan Grizzlies. So that'll be on KVNU 102.1 FM, 610 AM, on kvnutalk.com, on the KVNU mobile app, but also video streaming on cashvalleydaily.com. He's got camera in hand, and he's got somebody else who's operating the camera, but camera will be there and video streaming that game later on this evening. And the other game that's at a unique venue, this was a game originally scheduled to be played at Morgan, but because of some wildfires and evacuations in the area, the school administration thought it prudent to play it safe and move the game to a different venue. And turns out to be a pretty cool venue for these players. And it's going to be Ridgeline at Morgan being played at Weber State University. So really cool opportunity to play on that field and to have that opportunity to be there in that kind of a venue. And hopefully a lot of Ridgeline fans are making their way to Weber State to cheer on Ridgeline. But if you can't make it, we've got a crew there. And now, normally it's Dave Simmons does the play-by-play. He's another one who's been helping us for a very long time with high school sports in this area. As an analyst for a long time with the Skyview Bobcats, did some stuff for Logan High, was a play-by-play announcer for them. But once Ridgeline opened, he slid over to be the announcer, the dedicated announcer for the Riverhawks. So Dave Simmons on the call normally for the Riverhawks, but this game in particular is going to be called by our friend Chad Saunders. Now, Chad Saunders joined us last year to help call games along the Wasatch Front. He's somebody who lives down along the Wasatch Front and helps with some of the calling some of these games. So some of our broadcast teams don't have to travel quite as far. And he's certainly happy to help out. He's got some experience, a lot of experience in radio. And so it'll be Chad Saunders on the call for the Ridgeline Riverhawks tonight on 104.5 The Ranch and video streaming on CashValleyDaily.com. And special guest joining him on this broadcast, Dave Lowe, will be his color analyst. Dave Lowe is the PA announcer at Ridgeline for the Riverhawks and has been a long time connected to the Ridgeline high school community. So Dave Lowe will be joining Chad Saunders tonight for the Ridgeline game against Morgan. Now, two really good programs. Ridgeline won the state championship, demolished their opponents last year. A lot of interesting pieces coming back this season. Morgan, the class of 3A, and they've always had a really good program. They even though they're a 3A school, they play like a 4A and sometimes like a 5A school. So a really interesting early test for Ridgeline as they break in a new quarterback and a couple other key people. They do have a lot of experience, especially in the running game and their offensive line, and always a stout defense for Ridgeline. So again, 104.5 The Ranch for the Riverhawks tonight. The next game we want to talk about is Green Canyon. They're at home tonight. They're hosting the Provo Bulldogs, and a guy that we've really enjoyed listening and see him grow in the game is Stockton Jukes, who's been our play-by-play caller for the last several years following the Green Canyon Wolves. That's a Green Canyon team that punches above their weight, seemingly, and wasn't expected to be one of the top teams in 4A, but found their way all the way into the championship game last year. So how do they build off of that momentum with head coach JT Tauili? Now, we do have a new analyst helping out with Stockton this year. Taylor Davis will be helping Stockton on his calls this season for Green Canyon. So we're excited to hear that duo call the games for the Green Canyon Wolves. And you can hear those games on 100.9 Light FM. You can also watch them on CashValleyDaily.com. So multiple ways to follow Green Canyon as they kick off their season tonight at home with the Provo Bulldogs in town. Another team we want to tell you about that's part of our family of broadcasting following these teams, the Bear River Bears. They're going to be at Ogden tonight. And once again, a long tradition of broadcasting the Bears on 104.9. Used to be a full signal. Then that radio station moved away. We found some new ways of doing it and actually set up some new rules with the FCC, actually, to make that happen because it felt it's so important to us to keep these games going for the Bear River Bears on local radio and local broadcasting. And so that tradition continues on 104.9 with Trent Carter once again in the saddle, calling the play-by-play for the Bears on 104.9 The Ranch. They're going to be at Ogden tonight. Josh Tyre joining on the broadcast again. He's part of that broadcast crew. So we're really excited to see this Bear River team as they have a new coach, but a very familiar name as their new coach. Coach Ander, who spent a long time at Skyview, spent time at Green Canyon, and now he is back in the region coaching for Bear River. And his first opportunity to make a mark on that program on the road tonight at Ogden. So once again, broadcasting on 104.9 The Ranch and video streaming on CashValleyDaily.com. And last but not least, the Mountain Crest Mustangs. Now, unfortunately, because of where this venue is, it's a new school, and the timing of how it takes to get to this venue, our broadcast crew wasn't able to make the drive to get to Deer Creek. This is a new school. This is in the Heber area, and if I'm not mistaken, I need to double check on this, but I'm pretty sure that Deer Creek, their new mascot, they're a brand new school. And certainly there's that Deer Creek Reservoir in beautiful Heber Valley. So there's a new Deer Creek High School, and their mascot sounds like a familiar name, the Deer Creek Riverhawks. Yes, I thought that would be unique because it's a made-up bird. There is no such thing as a riverhawk technically. But Deer Creek, they must like Ridgeline so much they wanted to copy them. They see all the success that Ridgeline has had, and they figure, well, maybe we should take some of that with us as well. So there's the Deer Creek Riverhawks, and located in Heber City, they're a new school that just opened up this year. And so Mountain Crest will be at Deer Creek. Unfortunately, we will not have that game broadcast on local radio or video streaming on Cache Valley Daily. But when we do have games with the Mustangs, those games will be on 107.7 FM and video streaming on Cache Valley Daily. And once again, the father-son duo will continue. Cody Olson, who's had several years of experience covering high school sports here and in other areas. Excited to have him back calling games once again for us. And John Olson, the coach, will be joining him on those calls, as John Olson has had experience as an assistant coach and has had many years experience calling games for high school sports and connected with our group supporting these local high schools. So excited to see this group of games take place starting tonight. And we've kind of looked at these teams who might be in the best position to make some noise, who could be an exciting team to watch this year, who might be a bit of a dark horse. Well, we're going to learn a lot tonight because everything else is speculation. But once these games start happening, that's when you really start to learn what these teams are all about. And I think when you look at this schedule, they're all set up to give us some really good information about what these teams are like. It's not like there's a really outsized situation here where it's like, okay, yeah, they should walk away with that one. They should take care of business pretty easily against that kind of opponent. These are all pretty good opponents for these teams throughout Region 11 and including Logan in 3A North. These are all teams that are going to be good barometers for these teams to tell us how good these teams really are or how much work they still have to do. Because, it's, as I said, maybe Bear River at Ogden. I know Ogden has struggled a bit in the past, but Bear River has struggled a little bit too. So new coach, new era for them. Certainly new coach, new era for Logan. Keeping an eye on that and kind of see how these coaches kind of establish themselves and kind of announce to the world, like, this is who we are and this is what we're going to look like. So are we going to be successful? Are we going to have a chance to go deep into the playoffs? And are we going to make some noise this season? So it all starts tonight. So pregame coverage on all of these games starting at about 6:45. Some of them don't get going until about 6:50. Kind of depends on situations. But kickoffs, all of them at 7 o'clock tonight. And we've got links to how you can listen, how you can watch on CacheValleyDaily.com. And if we can, there might be a way to find a link for the Mountain Crest game. And if I can find it, we'll put it on there so you can still watch that. It won't be our crew calling the game, so be wary. There could be some bias for this new school coming out, but there might be a way to find that. But Mountain Crest Mustangs facing Deer Creek High School in their inaugural season, their first game of history. So Mountain Crest making history. Are they going to let Deer Creek get their first win, or are they going to make them wait a while? So we'll see. And cheer on the Mustangs on the road. So again, Mountain Crest on the road, Logan at a neutral site at Juan Diego. That's certainly closer to Summit Academy than it is to Logan. Ridgeline was supposed to be on the road, but it's now turned out to be a neutral site. It's still closer to Morgan than it is to Millville, but hopefully a lot of Millville or Ridgeline fans make the trek south to cheer on the Riverhawks. Bear River is not that far away. Actually, they're just up the road. They're at Ogden High School. And then Skyview and Green Canyon are home tonight, hosting Park City for Skyview and Provo for Green Canyon. So once again, all the details of these games and these matchups can be found and how you can watch or listen on CashValleyDaily.com. Quick timeout here in the Full Court Press. And when we come back, taking a look at what's going on with USU. We've got some other events taking place with some of their sports and their teams. A big game, big matchup for soccer this weekend. Utah State volleyball had another exhibition. We'll take a look at that. And also there's another, we talk about rankings a lot today on the show. ESPN had another interesting ranking list that came out, ranking different quarterbacks throughout the NFL based on specific traits. So where does former Aggie Jordan Love land on this list? And how many is he among the top 10 of quarterbacks on any of these lists? We'll take a look. That's coming up ahead on the Full Court Press on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan. Hey, coming up later this month, it's Cache Valley's biggest garage sale. If you're ready for big deals and great deal hunting, it's coming up on Saturday, August 29th from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Eccles Ice Center parking lot in North Logan. Shop over 50 vendors. There will be lots of great deals like clothing, home goods, furniture, tools, collectibles. Bring the whole family with you because there'll be food trucks on hand. There's also going to be free kids' bouncy houses from Checkett's Amusements. And if you want to sell stuff, if you want to clear out your garage, your attic, or your basement, there's still time for you to get your own booth to sell stuff. Just go sign up for a booth today at CashValleyGarageSale.com. That's CashValleyGarageSale.com. Proudly sponsored by DD Auto and Salvage. So, again, the high school football schedule kicking off tonight as all these different teams that we cover are going to be in action. We unfortunately don't have a broadcast crew for Mountain Crest, but Ridgeline versus Morgan at Weber State on 104.5 The Ranch. Logan versus Summit Academy at Juan Diego on KVNU, 102.1 FM, 610 AM. Green Canyon at home versus Provo on 100.9 Light FM. Skyview versus Park City here on The Fan. And Bear River at Ogden on 104.9 The Ranch in the Bear River Valley. 8739 texting in saying, I'm not a bird guru, but is Riverhawk a nickname for an osprey? Technically, yes, that's where they got the name to kind of mimic an osprey. But if you were to look it up by, I guess, a technical term, there is no such thing as a river hawk. But rather than calling them the Ridgeline Ospreys, Ridgeline Riverhawks has a better, roll off the tongue sort of effect. So it basically is an osprey, and when you look at the imagery that they use, it's an osprey with the Ridgeline colors, and very similar to the Seattle Seahawks, which is also basically an osprey. So we give ascribe different nicknames to this same bird. So it's not a totally mythical creature just made up out of nowhere. It does have its origins in a real legitimate bird, but it is kind of a nickname for that bird. So interesting that Deer Creek chose the Riverhawk as well, as you don't really find Riverhawk as a team mascot really anywhere. And now we've got two Riverhawks here in the state of Utah. So interesting fun fact, if you will. But excited for what takes place. Is going to take place later this evening with high school football kicking off here on our family of radio stations. So the NFL preseason is underway. We had the Hall of Fame game, which kind of stands alone, but game started last night. We got games going on tonight. Games will have a lot of games on Saturday, no games on Sunday. But as the NFL season is getting underway, the folks over at ESPN put together an interesting ranking of all quarterbacks. Now, this is by Dan Orlovsky, ranking quarterbacks by different traits, because some quarterbacks are better at some things than others. Some are better pocket passers, some are better at more elusive, some are better in the run game, some are more accurate. So they had 7 different traits that they highlighted. And so certainly our curiosity is, well, where does Jordan Love land on this list? As he is a starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. He's got several years in the NFL. Does he appear on any of these lists? So there are 7 different traits that Orlovsky pointed out, and he ranked only 10 for each of these traits. And so it starts off with arm strength. Jordan Love's not on that list. He's not in the top 10, which surprised me, because this is a big guy. He's got a big arm. So it surprised me that Jordan Love was not among the top 10 with arm strength, because Lamar Jackson's on that list. I would have thought that Jordan Love had a bigger arm than Lamar Jackson, but this is according to Dan Orlovsky. But the next one is ball placement. Do we find Jordan Love on this list? Finally, yes. We find Jordan Love. He's ranked 6th on this list. In mechanics, no Jordan Love. He's not among the top 10 in the NFL with mechanics, his mechanics. What about decision-making with the football? Here we see Jordan Love once again. He's number 3 on this list. The only players ranked above him in his mechanics, no Jordan Love in mechanics. I jumped ahead. No Jordan Love in the top 10 for mechanics. Where we do see him, number 3, is in decisions and his decision making with the football. That's where we find Jordan Love at number 3 on the list. Only Matt Stafford and Josh Allen are above him. But players like Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, they're all below Jordan Love in how well he's ranked among what he does with the football, his decision-making with the football. But other lists, the other traits that are included, pocket presence, second reaction ability, rushing ability. We don't see Jordan Love on any of these lists. So of the 7 lists, the 7 traits that are highlighted, arm strength, ball placement, mechanics, decision-making with the football, pocket presence, second reaction ability, and rushing ability. Jordan Love only appears on 2 of these lists. And he ranks the highest in decision-making with the football. He ranks 6th with ball placement. But he doesn't appear on any of these other lists. I think the one that surprises me the most, not seeing Jordan Love on one of these lists, is his arm strength. Now, I get rushing ability. He's not necessarily known to be a strong rushing quarterback. He can scramble, but that's not his strong suit. That's not what he really did in college. It's not what he's really done in the NFL. But some of these other things kind of surprise me that he's not on any of these lists, like pocket presence, arm strength. I think he's done pretty well in these categories. But we see some young up-and-comers kind of pushing him out of the way as he's a veteran. But he does appear on 2 traits for Jordan Love that are getting recognized is his decision-making and certainly what he does with ball placement. And he's had a couple of games where he's put passes on a dime. And last year, it was a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of a struggling year for the Packers. Key wide receivers out, some key injuries on that offense. And so they were kind of make do with what they had. And so it's an okay season. I don't want to even say it was a mediocre season. But I have confidence that this year is going to be different for Green Bay and specifically for Jordan Love. He's going to have more talent at the wide receiver position. I think that they're more experienced on the odd offensive line. I think they've got more experience coming back at the running back position. So I think that a lot of things are going to put in play to highlight Jordan Love, make him look like the better quarterback that he really is. He was overcoming a lot of deficiencies last year. I don't think he's going to have the same level of deficiencies this year. So he's going to look like a more accomplished quarterback. He already is an accomplished quarterback, but because of some of the challenges that were existing around him on the team, it made him look like he wasn't quite as solid. But this year, I think there's going to be a different year for Jordan Love in that offense. I think that they need to have a little bit more of a killer instinct with that offensive unit as a team. Their head coach needs to have a little bit more of a killer instinct, but I think that there's a warming seat there for the head coach. So I think that there's going to be a little added motivation to try to perform and do a little bit better than they've done. But having the right pieces in place makes a big difference with the quarterback. Certainly mechanics, I think that's universal. Either you have it or you don't. Arm strength, whether you're on a good team or a bad team, it's pretty clear if you can chuck the ball down the field. But do you have wide receivers that can get in the right place for ball placement? Do you have offensive line that give you time to have a little better pocket presence and better decision-making when you have the football? Running the ball, rushing ability, again, like the others. So regardless of your team's success, either that's part of your game or it isn't. He can rush the ball. It's not his strength. It's not what he loves to do, but he can. He can scramble when he needs to. He can move the pylon forward when he needs to. He can push into the end zone when he needs to. But it's not his first choice, not his second choice, as opposed to guys like Lamar Jackson or even Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts. These are guys who or Josh Allen, who are running the game is definitely part of their game, which makes them lethal quarterbacks because it requires the defense to assign somebody to watch for that possibility. But Jordan Love, I think he's poised to have a solid bounce back season for the Green Bay Packers. Now, limited ability or limited production, I should say, last night in his debut in the Green Bay Packers' first preseason game. He was only out there for a short time, 3 of 5 for 18 yards. So very limited. He did start, but was not really involved too much after that. And the Packers did what I believe they should do. Use a preseason game to work on your second, third, or even fourth string guys. Give longer runs and opportunities for other guys to get on the field and showcase what they can do or what they can't do to help the team, the coach, and the management to really be a little bit more clear about who they should or shouldn't worry about keeping on their rosters. So anyway, I think that Jordan Love's going to be just fine. No, he didn't appear on very many of these lists. He's not in the top 10 in a number of these the lists that Orlovsky put together, but he's a quality quarterback, and I think he's going to have a bounce-back season for Green Bay, and it would be interesting if these got re-ranked at the conclusion of the season and where Jordan Love may end up on some of these lists, or maybe not. But I think that he could end up on some that he's not on right now, or maybe even a little bit higher than the one with the ones that he currently already exists. So anyway, your thoughts on that as the NFL preseason is getting underway. We had games last night, more games tonight. We got a bunch of games on the schedule tomorrow as well. Any particular games that you're going to be paying attention to? Former Aggies all over the place, trying to make rosters or firmly on rosters, and we'll take a look at that. We had some former Aggies involved last night. Update you on how well they performed. That's coming up next here on the Full Court Press, and then also look at what's going on with Utah State. Utah State volleyball had an exhibition today. Utah State soccer's got a really big game this weekend. That's all ahead on the Full Court Press on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan. Birdie's Golf Lounge has a swing AI coach system. It uses the UniCore i X02 launch monitors. It has 2 additional cameras for superior analysis. And that top-of-the-line launch monitor stuff, 3 internal cameras, provides the most accurate readings for every part of your game. Plus, you can just play different courses while you're there. Over 2,000 courses are available, created using LiDAR for the most realistic mapping. And just check it out if you want to bring, you go there for a party, for a birthday, or just grab some friends from work or from the neighborhood. Go there for hourly public bookings, or you have your membership to go there more often than that. Just go check it out. More details can be found at Birdie's Golf Lounge, 650 North, 870 West in Logan. So the NFL preseason is going on, and games last night. We got more games going on and underway right now. And we already mentioned Jordan Love was in action last night. He wasn't the only former Aggie playing last night. Noah Avenger for the Rams got in on some action. He had 2 solo tackles last night. And Devin Tompkins, he's now playing for the Raiders. And we saw quite a bit of Devin Tompkins, not always in the passing game. He did catch 1 pass for 6 yards. He was targeted twice, able to pull down one of those. But we definitely saw him more in the return game. 3 returns on kickoffs for 91 yards. He had one where he really got loose for 33. And he also was involved in punt returns. He returned 1 punt for 10 yards. So Devin Tompkins getting some nice run there with the Raiders last night. Jalen Davis plays for Cincinnati. Unfortunately, he did not record any stats. I'm not sure if he got involved in the game. I haven't seen his snap count if he was involved there or not, but he did not record any stats in that game last night. A game going on right now. It's the Broncos at the Falcons, and Kyrese Rowan is playing for Denver, and we'll still see if he gets involved or not. Tomorrow, a couple other Aggies that we'll be keeping an eye on. Miles Davis, who had a great debut for the Panthers in their game in the Hall of Fame game last week. See if he can follow that up with an encore, rushing the ball, maybe a chance to catch the ball out of the backfield. But that game will be Saturday at 11 a.m. And then also Jalen Royals, somebody who got a little bit sidetracked with injuries last year, didn't quite have the opportunity to build that rapport with Patrick Mahomes. But there have been a number of reports out of the Kansas City Chiefs training camp that indicate that Jalen Royals is becoming a favorite target for Patrick Mahomes. So we'll see how well that translates. Now he'll play tomorrow, Saturday at 2:00 for the Chiefs, and I believe that game will be broadcast. Yes, that'll be against Miles Davis and the LA Rams, 2:00 on NFL Network. So opportunity to look in on a couple of former Aggies in that game. And the game with a couple other Aggies, excuse me, not Miles Davis. Miles Davis plays for the Panthers, and they play at 11. It's Noah Avenger with the Rams on Saturday at 2. So maybe Noah Avenger will have an opportunity to tackle Jalen Royals, and that would be Aggie on Aggie violence. So I don't know. Maybe that will happen, maybe not, but there is the potential where it could. So excited to see what happens with these former Aggies trying to make it to some of these NFL rosters for the preseason. And this is the time where that happens. This is the time where these guys get that opportunity to make a name for themselves. And we've seen it really work, where guys can do really well in the preseason, and NFL teams get a chance to take a really good long look and say, man, we really need this guy on our roster. We can't let him go. So last night in the NFL, in their preseason games, it was a few games that went final. An exciting one between the Bengals and the Lions. Bengals winning that one 16-14. The Steelers beat the Packers 28-9. It was a draw between the Colts and the Patriots. The tie ended in a tie, 13 apiece. Cardinals beating the Raiders 27-14, despite Devin Tompkins performing well in the return game. Chargers beat the Texans, and the Titans beating the 49ers last night. So tonight, a couple games, they're all going right now. And one game is on the NFL Network. That's the Buccaneers at the Jets. You also have the Falcons hosting the Broncos. Going on ESPN Unlimited is showing that one. And the Dolphins are at the Commanders as the first quarter winding down and second quarter really getting underway with those games. So continue to keep an eye on how well these former Aggies are doing here over these next few weeks, and see the reactions from some of the coaches and how well some of these players have done. Going to take a timeout here in the Full Court Press, but when we come back, talk about how well things are going. Let's talk about the Utah State Aggies, the women volleyball team. They were in action earlier this week at Grand Canyon. It was an exhibition, so we don't have stats or official results. They were also in action today, taking on Idaho State. There's a nice photo gallery of that match on Cache Valley Daily. And then USU Soccer with a really big game coming up on Sunday against a pretty big opponent, pretty big named opponent coming to Bell Field as they open up their home season on Sunday. We'll tell you about that and point out the reason why you want to show up early to that one. That's coming up next here on the Full Court Press on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Just realized those watching on the video stream got to see my searching around and looking at things during the commercial break. Normally, we go to a different tile during the break, and you don't get to see what we're doing here in studio. I'm sure that was fascinating. Very boring. Anyway, if you want to chime in, we always love to hear from you. 435-339-0321, or you can drop in on the YouTube chat. The Fan KLGN is our YouTube channel. Big news for Utah State soccer taking on Michigan on Sunday, welcoming the Wolverines to Bell Field as the home opener for the Utah State women's soccer program in their inaugural year in the Pac-12. And the first fans who are able to get there will have an opportunity to get some free stuff. Now, Utah State soccer celebrating 30 years with the soccer program, and so they want to hand out some free pennants to the first people who show up. So the first 250 fans who show up get a very special pennant celebrating 30 years for Utah State soccer. So again, taking on Michigan at 7 o'clock at Bell Field. First 250 fans win some free stuff. But the Utah State coming back, trying to recover from that 2-0 loss at number 15 Kansas, and trying to going to bounce back. And this would be a great way to get back on track with beating a Big Ten team with some big name recognition, a team that a program that had some ups and downs last season. So Utah State has an opportunity to make a statement with the win against Michigan if they can. And then they next will play Portland or later on next week. But a great opportunity to go out and support Utah State women's soccer as they get going with their home opener this Sunday at 7 o'clock. Utah State women's volleyball also in action. And they had an exhibition earlier in the week at Grand Canyon, flew down to Phoenix for that one. But they had an exhibition game earlier today. It was at 11 o'clock at the Estes Center, Club Estes. And we had a photographer there shooting a lot of the action photos. You can see those on cachevalleydaily.com. But since it was an exhibition, no formal stat keeping or things like that were shared. But still a great opportunity to see this Utah State volleyball team in action with the new head coach and some key new players there. So excited to see these teams in action and really getting rolling as the season is started. One other thing to pass along, this is kind of breaking throughout the day today. Boise State, they had to appear at a Board of Education, State Board of Education meeting that took place yesterday in Pocatello at Idaho State University. And Boise State athletic officials going to that board saying, we're facing a budget crisis. We are in deficit that could rise to $18 million this upcoming year. And a couple of factors that are contributing to that. They cite revenue sharing with the athletes, but also the move to the Pac-12. And this is a program that their financial losses could have been even more significant last year. However, they were able to avoid some of that because they got money from the college football playoff that still came their way. And they held a big concert. Post Malone was there at Albertson Stadium. They were able to make some money off of that. So they were able to kind of stem the bleeding a little bit the year prior because of some of these other events that took place. But they're staring at some real financial concerns moving to the future where they're going to lean in on needing more institutional support, which is not what they want to do. Certainly that's very familiar for Utah State. They've always leaned on institutional support. But Boise State in a precarious situation where they're heading in the wrong direction. Now, the revenue sharing is one of the issues that they point to. And their athletic director, Jeremiah Dickey, saying that we are falling behind. Dickey said Boise State could rank third or fourth in the Pac-12 when it comes to revenue sharing. But they're not going to reach that cap, which is they can pay up to $21.3 million. And they're not going to approach that. But saying that they need more than they currently have. They need help from the institution. The other reason they cited was their move to the Pac-12 and needing to make some adjustments. Certainly the legal fees and paying the exit fees go into part of that that they had to pay out. But the university says it has reserves, so it can cover the deficits. According to some of their people on their staff, but still, it kind of points to a position that a lot of us have been kind of concerned about throughout college football: is how sustainable can programs be in this new era of revenue sharing and all the extra costs that are associated with running an athletic department, trying to keep up with the Joneses. And Utah State's been leaning heavily on institutional support for a long time, which I think is way too much. More than half of the budget for Utah State comes from the institutional support and student fees. But and they keep asking for more just to try to keep up and keep pace. But it's a problem for a place even like Boise State, which has benefited from a big paycheck from the college football playoff. Now, they also had something that they did this summer. They at their arena, they hosted a monster truck rally. They had Banana Ball there. The Savannah Bananas came and did a game. They got a big country artist, Luke Combs, is going to be there next summer. So I give them credit trying to create special events to maximize the venue and create opportunities. But even with the advantages that they have, being in a larger market and the venue that they have and the unique things that are happening there for Boise State, they're still struggling financially. So I know Utah State tried to put on a big concert. It could have gone better, but they trying to learn through some of those mistakes and early learning curve on putting on things like that together. But does that scare Utah State from doing more things, or do they take the approach of, okay, we'll lick our wounds, we'll try to figure this out and try to be better next time? Because they have to find ways to maximize those venues, put on specialty events to generate more revenue for that athletic department, utilizing the facilities that already exist, utilizing things that you already have that just sit dormant and collect cobwebs. Are there ways to take more advantage of the venues that you already have and use them for different things? So I know the Spectrum gets used for different events. It gets rented out for private concerts or private comedy shows, or sometimes even for church events and things like that, for high school graduations. But can the football arena stadium, can it be utilized a little bit more? But for Boise State, it's a program that's struggling in some things here recently. They're trying to find some ways to subsidize that, get around it, but currently trying to lean in on the institution to help bail them out of their deficit. They have the funds to cover it, but not sure how long that's going to continue, or will it be satisfied with the bailing out athletics. State Board Executive Director in Idaho, Jennifer White, in the meeting, she said the athletic department's budget hole is not a structural deficit at the broader university. So the university itself is okay, but athletics certainly running into some over expected costs, even though they're doing some things to outside of athletics to try to cover that. So it's definitely a cautionary tale in college athletics, even closer to home here in the Pac-12. And as they make that change. Now, if they're in a position to get into the college football playoff, that's going to help cover a lot of that. But you really shouldn't be running your budget hoping that you achieve something that's really, really hard and really rare to accomplish. If any chance that they get to that type of level, that should be just gravy poured on top. I don't think that they can bank on to rely on that as a regular line item coming in on their budget to come their way, because there's just too many other good football programs vying for that very same position. So a reminder, we got a busy night tonight for high school football. You can follow all these different schools as some are home, some are away, some are at neutral sites. We've got all the details about the video streaming and even the radio broadcasts, how to listen, how to watch. It's all available on CashValleyDaily.com with the Logan High Grizzlies, Green Canyon Wolves, Skyview Bobcats, Bear River Bears, and Ridgeline Riverhawks in action tonight. Unfortunately, we don't have a broadcast crew with the Mountain Crest Mustangs as they're at Deer Creek as that school opens their school's first game for them in their history. We'll see if Mountain Crest can maybe spoil their big opening celebration, but we'll try to keep an eye on it nonetheless. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll be back at it again on Monday here on The Fan.